Hello everyone, welcome to the Ocean Sound Storytelling Channel. I am the Storyteller, and today I am so happy to be with you. You may be curled up under a blanket or listening with your ears on a soft pillow. Wherever you are, whatever the time, thank you for being here. Before we begin with an interesting story, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so I know you enjoy relaxing moments like this. Where are you from? Send me a little hello in the comments. I would love to know which corner of the world you are listening from. Now, relax your body. Close your eyes and let the gentle waves take you into a gentle story, a little strange, a little mysterious, but warm enough to lull you to sleep all night long. So, are you ready? Tonight's story begins. The hour approaches, gold and silver thread shimmer in my candlelit chamber. The figures of three noble women standing beneath a garden tree in the tapestry opposite feel as much part of me as the veins in my still, slender hands. One holds a bunch of flowers, one carries a basket of eggs, and the third stretches out her hand to a pelican. Symbol of motherhood, it is said the pelican will pluck its breast and feed the young on its own blood rather than see them starve. I can almost hear the mocking laughter of lives mercilessly cut short. In my dreams, the piercing cries of unquiet souls falsely accused. Grisly husks with popping eyes, whose contortions form a grotesque parody of life. Your time will come. We are waiting. The hour approaches, not if I keep standing, while the rest of my body crumbles. My ears hear well enough. In the early years, wigs lent majesty. Later, they covered the true extent of my hair loss. In my next dream, I enter a hall of mirrors, long forbidden in my palaces. Wigless and mask-free, I recoil at the gray tufts springing from a once noble crown. I'm dismayed by the sunken hollows that pass for cheeks, and my neck is a cavern of worms. I open my mouth to find stumps rattling in my jaw like beaten soldiers. My eyes, once glorious pools of gold brown, are blackened pits. I wake up yelling, and Cat is there to soothe my brow, as she did when I was a child. Yet Cat died years ago. You killed her with overwork. The hour approaches. Only last week, I was indulging in my favorite candies, and my neck was bedecked in a fine ruff with loops of hanging pearls. Since then, I've barely eaten, though my thirst is unquenchable. Knowing I no longer have the stomach for wine, my maids pour weak ale down my unprotesting throat. That way, I live longer. Pain and melancholy have been my bedfellows for so long. No amount of bloodletting of the body's humors can rid me of them. I must remain upright. I was once a tall, striking creature with auburn hair. Unfortunately, my womanly body was regarded as unfit to rule on account of its corruption, the result of Eve's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. I had nightmares of a ghastly preacher shaking his fist at me and inveighing against the monstrous regiment of women whose ruling over men was deemed repugnant to nature. However, at the key moment, my imperfect flesh became wedded to the body politic. By some mysterious process, it rose above physical limitations and took on a perfect form. Early on, I learnt to suppress any sign of weakness and use my femininity as a weapon. Born under the sign of Virgo, I was married only to my people. As expressed in my clothing, I sacrificed self for their symbolic love. Over the years, this red-painted cochineal mouth has issued commands, witty rejoinders, sarcastic riposts. When it suited me, occasional snippets of wisdom. These childlike lips had courtiers running to do my bidding, trembling lest they displeased me and lost their heads. Little by little, I emerged from feebleness, impressing statesmen, and learned men alike. On my progresses through the country, I was said to have the common touch, waiting for hours to catch a glimpse. Ordinary people were touched by my concern for their comfort and welfare. Admittedly, there was precious little to be had in some of the city's hovels. You put on a good show. But the hour approaches. Finally, my supreme moment came. The defeat of the Spanish Armada turned my country's fortunes around. After exhorting the men encamped at Tilbury to victory before they set off in their cannoned ships, I emerged as Gloriana. I may have had the body of a feeble woman, but proved I had the heart and stomach of a king. Perhaps triumph entrenched me, made me more like my father. Loved and feared in equal measures, he bestrode the court like a colossus. A rule which started full of promise grew tyrannical. People feared for their lives. Now you fear for yours. The hour approaches, not if I keep standing. You may wonder how I could love a man who in one foul swoop instigated the destruction of my mother when I was not yet 3. My first brush with death. Even now, I'm unsure whether it was love or fear that drove our relationship. I never spoke to anyone directly about my mother, least of all the king, when he lived. My early sagacity may have saved me during my most perilous moments. During my sister Mary's reign, my very survival hung in the balance. I died many times in my mind then. The consummate player, I played for the highest stakes and won by a hair's breadth. Even when I succeeded to the throne, I rarely let my guard down. Those I've truly trusted have been few and far between. But if I outranked them all in terms of flair, capacity, and intellect, I didn't do it alone. I took advice from the best counselors in the land, namely my dear Cecil, who served me faithfully until he died a few years ago, and whose son now takes his place. Perhaps the older Cecil didn't always please me, but without him, the burden of politics presses heavily. The well of depression, which first opened when I lost Kat, my governess and dear friend, deepened. I miss her. Take those leeches away, and let me have some peace. Nay, none of it feels like winning now. There's nothing triumphant about lying swaddled in a heap of cushions, even if they are in Richmond Palace's private quarters. Our family often decamped here to escape the turmoil of state affairs. Yet this dreamscape of towers and turrets overlooking the river has become a glorified prison. A servant stokes the fire, keeping off the last of winter's chill before spring's sweet arrival, which I won't see. With each passing day, my ladies add more cushions, so when my legs buckle from the strain of standing for hours, no bones get broken. You need to rest and get some sleep, Your Majesty, except to lie down is to face death. Your hour approaches. Ignoring the doctor's wheedling, I remain fixed as the northern star. He and Cecil work in tandem. The smooth politician who isn't a patch on his father, and the oily medic grown greedy on royal patronage. Between them, they will pluck the name of my successor from their childless queen's lips if it's the last thing they do. Of course, I should never have agreed to have the coronation ring removed from my finger to relieve the swelling. I'd not taken it off since my coronation all those years ago, and nothing has been right since. However, I'm adamant that my mother of pearl locket ring remains on my finger for as long as I breathe. What happens next is beyond my control. I trust the women who wait on me will honor my wishes. Only 2 weeks ago, I was able to cast the pain aside and demand my wardrobe mistress clothe me in a fine linen dress and put a ruff round my neck. Enduring the discomfort of hoop and bustle, my face was covered in a thick layer of white lead makeup to cover the pox I was left when I caught smallpox as a young queen. The daubing of my wrists in sweet perfume made me feel almost human. Now sunken in cushions, the chime of bells reaches across our fading fields. I catch the tail end of whispers, infuriated at not being able to hear precisely what's being said. I can no longer demand they tell me or suffer the consequences. The nightmare of that fortress rising above me is upon me again. At the time, the sight of the royal prison almost unhinged me, but a mistress of deception must survive such trials. My elder sister Mary was ruling the country with a rod of iron, and the stakes were kept busy dealing with dissenters. To be so fierce in her beliefs may have been my sister's undoing. When I first became queen, I refused to make windows into men's souls. So long as people confirmed to the Anglican religion carved out by my father. They had no need to fear. Yet in your reign, you've ordered more deaths than your sister. Your hour approaches. The very mention of the tower would make the most hardened traitor's bowels shrivel, especially with the threat of torture. As a member of royalty, I would not have to suffer the horrors of Wyatt and his supporters when their rebellion failed. Although I distanced myself from all plots to overthrow my sister, every failure put me in peril. With rumors and counter-rumors circulating of my complicity, I daily faced the threat of destruction. I vividly remember that journey to the tower, passing scenes of horror and desolation. Heads and body parts mounted on spikes at the city's gates displayed the consequence of treason. As we approached, I heard the blood-curdling roar of its lions and turned feverish. To be revisiting the place where my mother had spent her last days, and to have to endure interrogation seemed beyond me. But I kept my resolve. Any consolation in being given pleasant rooms was short-lived when I discovered the only means of stretching my legs meant having to pass the site of my mother's scaffold. If it came to it, I'd planned on asking for a French sword rather than the cumbersome axe. My mother had made exactly that request before her execution, and then had to suffer the agonies of waiting for my father to grant her wish. Much later, I learnt there was talk of sparing her and allowing her to flee to a nunnery. When the king's love turned sour, he had punished her failure to produce a male heir by getting Cromwell, his clever and formidable politician, to accuse her of numerous acts of treason. They included witchcraft and adultery, including with her own brother. No woman's name was more besmirched. She had been called the king's whore before he made her queen. But she met her death with dignity, making a wise speech to the gathered crowd. In a stroke, she was dead, but not dishonored. I gleaned the details of my mother's final days, long after her death. I dimly recall seeing her as a child. I did not live with her, and when her deliveries of lovely clothes dried up, I sensed something was wrong. In the flickering candlelight, they have coaxed me to bed, where the dark night hovers waiting for my soul. I've always been surrounded by people wanting something. The country's most senior men wait here, watchdogs to a diminishing power. Even a queen cannot hold back death forever. The hour approaches. My physician presses my wrist and clears his throat. Your Majesty, there's the matter of the post-mortem? No cutting, but with great humility. It can be helpful to know the cause of illness for future understanding and inquiries. No, and, the issue of embalming? No, it is usual practice with royalty. No, of course, Your Majesty. His shoulders slump. He will have nothing interesting to report for posterity. The Archbishop arrives carrying oils. must speak alone. My voice cracks. Everyone to go. In the silence, the Archbishop reaches for my hand. I dreamed of Mary again. I whisper, which one? Your sister? Or the other one? My cousin. She was the Queen of Scotland. I should never have signed the death warrant. I didn't mean it to be sent. It had to be, Your Majesty. She was complicit in the Babington plot. I tell you, my hand was forced. It was unseemly. I fear God will judge me harshly. Yet, while your cousin lived, you were in constant danger. She was your ultimate rival. But then the manner of her death. Arg. She was not felled straight away. I heard her dog ran out from under her dress, howling. And then they dipped his nose into her blood. Bitter tears form runnels in my makeup. To go the grave with such thoughts is abominable. What is done cannot be undone, Your Grace. But will I be pardoned for my sins? You will be pardoned and treated as a queen in heaven, as you are on earth. But his voice lacks conviction. Have you thought any more about the most pressing matter? The kiss of his lips to my hand is like the flutter of a bee's wings over a honeypot. They need to know. Who will it be? A vacant tear falls onto the pillow. I have no heirs, so it will have to be Mary's son, James. But I'm damned if they're getting it out of me till I'm ready. They plagued me to marry and produce an heir, although no man ever pleased them. I played along with their schemes, kept them dangling while they sought out the best alliances. My maids were bribed to report the regularity of my monthly bleeds, but in the end, nothing could induce me. When it came to it, I couldn't allow a man to rule over me. Not even Dudley, who I almost loved, at least until our ardors dampened to the warmth of friendship. But how could I forget what happened to my mother when she married my father? And his love turned to hate. Or how my sister's husband deserted her and returned to Spain, leaving her bereft and childless. I played all proposed alliances off against one another, secretly resolved to remain single. No matter that the cushions have been removed. I request the assistance of my ladies to help me out of bed so I can see the tennis court from the window. I remember Dudley, long gone, playing hopelessly to amuse me. He was, however, a fine horseman, and we spent hours riding together. The only time I felt truly free. My chief counselor strides over, touches my shoulder. Your Majesty must go to bed. A knight and leader of the Privy Council he may be, but I will not abide such insolence from a whippersnapper. Little man, you do not use the word must to princes. Your father would not have spoken so. The truth is as bitter as gall. Knowing I must soon leave this life makes him presumptuous. England will have but one queen and no master. The roar of the lion is in my ears. At my coronation, I wore my mother's crown. It fitted me well, lying in bed, strangled by unspoken words. Their waxen faces loom, pressing for the name of my successor. Will it be James of Scotland, your grace? My mind flips back, and I'm riding in the barge along the Thames, heading towards the tower again. I keep telling myself I'm a passenger, not a prisoner, but my body has swollen. After my sister, I am the rightful heir to England's throne. My father restored my legitimacy at a grand ceremony in 1544. These men cannot get the better of me. I'm a queen in waiting, popular with the people. I cannot be harmed. Sickened by the boat's motion, I cry out, "Let us pull over so I may recover." The warehouses line the north bank, rising up like monsters from the deep. I've slept in many beds during my life's course, often with maids, occasionally alone, never with a man, though a number tried. The one here is appropriately boat-shaped and sumptuously draped with sea green curtains, composed of flesh, blood, and mottled bruises. I will the lungs beneath my chest to keep breathing. In and out, in and out. Mere mortal that I am. Your procrastinating must end. The hour fast approaches. Jay. The name sticks like a craw in my throat. Did you hear that? The Archbishop asks breathlessly. She can't speak. In air now grown fetid, my finger draws a circle. She's making the shape of a crown. My lady of the bedchamber understands, as does Kat, my old governess, returned to help me in my final trial. Is it to be James, the King of Scotland? Cecil's voice, low and urgent, breaks through the gloom. She's nodding consent, the Archbishop says. She keeps fiddling with the locket. What's in it? Leave it. Kat covers my hand. No man dare argue. In such moments, women protect their own. The ring has 6 rubies, and the letters E and R. The letter E has diamonds set over it, and the R is enameled in blue. But the ring bears a secret. Within the hinged head lie 2 miniature portraits, one of myself and another of an unnamed woman wearing a French hood. I imagine their gasps on opening it. She bears the look of... Kat will likely puff out her chest and tell them there was never any doubt she was her father's daughter. You only had to look at her. But God bless her, she was her mother's daughter too. Lingering on the threshold, my soul must finally meet its maker. I hear Kat's voice, loud and clear. Open the windows so the queen can smell the fresh cut grass. It's being pecked at by a rook. No more prevarication. My hour has come. Death in the White Room. In the White Room, always clean and full of light. Death had made itself at home. It lingered like an unwelcome guest, curling up in the dark recesses behind doors, or lying in wait beneath the bed's shallow. Its ghastly form remained unseen, its wheezing breaths unheard, yet its presence was unmistakable, marked by the foul stench that clung to the air. It was a scent of old blood mingled with lye, and human refuse tinged with a sharp, lemony undertone. Arthur abhorred the lemon smell most of all. It was a poor parody of the fruit, all the sour and none of the sweet. They try to hide the nature of this place. Fresh paint over rotting wood, he said, his gaze drifting to the one dying beside him. The stranger was no more than a shadow of someone he once knew, a poor artist's rendition of his sister. Her skin, once golden and kissed by the sun, had turned pallid, marred with patches of purple. Her hair, once a rich brown, full of life and curls, had withered away to a handful of brittle wisps. Arthur had long forgotten the exact shade of his sister's eyes. Were they brown like mine? Or did they favor mother's green? He wondered, but could not recall. He could lean over this sleeping stranger's body, pry open an eye to see. But this was not his sister, as he would often lie to himself. Yet he was older now than when she first became sick, and this lie seemed harder to believe with each passing day. A nurse, the fat one with that little nose, spilled a bedpan in the corridor today, Arthur said, his voice low and bitter. Like flies drawn to shit, they swarmed over it to clean before I could see. But I did. Red. He clutched the cold hand of the stranger. White little flies. I want to pick the wings off them and watch them struggle. I want to... His words faltered as something arrested his speech. A subtle, almost imperceptible squeeze from the stranger's hand served to both soothe and silence him. The stranger was listening. Was it the cruelty I insinuated, or the profanity that stirred you for a moment? Stranger, Arthur said, a wicked little smile curving his lips, though his eyes remained wide and wanting. He watched her lids, hoping to see them open, to see her well again. Yet no such miracle could exist. Her eyelids remained heavy, puffy, and bruised. There is a bit of father in me, you know, he whispered. A nastiness. Arthur turned to his left, gazing out of the window at the dying day. A thick wall of cloud loomed just above the horizon. Its underbelly dyed a deep orange by the setting sun, while the tops blushed pink against the purple sky. A seagull had perched itself on the windowsill, its clueless yellow eyes peering in. Yet, to Arthur, those eyes seemed mocking. The bird seemed to taunt him in silence. I smell the air, fresh and clean, while you languish on your sister's slow death. With a sudden, powerful flap of its wings, the seagull took off. A small down feather drifted in, slipping through a crack in the window, landing softly by Arthur's feet. He bent down to pick it up, But even that slight disturbance of air sent it skittering away, disappearing into the shadows beneath the bed. It was dark under the bed, where the shadows coiled thick and heavy. Death slumbered there, a patient snake nestled in the tall grass, awaiting an unsuspecting foot to wander too close. Arthur felt the bite, the venom coursing through his veins, carried by the flow of his blood. Sleep claimed him soon after, and not a peaceful dream was had that night. The stranger sat perched on the window stool, fingers gently pawing at the glass, as if yearning to escape. Their white gown, soft and delicate, was adorned with 1,000 downy feathers. The moon outside shone as brightly as the midday sun, bathing the world in a clean, silver light. When the stranger turned to face Arthur, familiarity struck. His sister looked at him with knowing yellow eyes and a petulant pout on her full lips. "You should open the window," she said, her voice hollow. Arthur cleared his throat, his voice strained. "Your feathers are too small. They won't catch the wind. You would fall like a chick too eager to leave the nest." She offered a wan, knowing smile. "These aren't my wings, silly. My wings are there," she said, gesturing towards the darkness beneath the bed. "Tucked away in the shadow, you try so hard to ignore. Despite the smell I know your nose catches. Would you abandon me? Ride the clouds with death and mocking seabirds, while I remain tethered to the earth with Father." Bang, bang, the sound tore through the night, rattling the very bones of the world. The moon fled, hiding behind a curtain of dark clouds. The door at the far end of the room shuddered on its rusted hinges, each violent shake loosening it further. The wood was aged and sodden, swollen with damp that wept from the splintered cracks, leaking a slow, miserable drip. Bang! Again, the assault resumed. A fist of stone, a voice of thunder on the other side. The clouds had deepened to a menacing red, pouring rain and spitting lightning. Thunder rumbled across the land, shaking the earth and rattling the windows in their frames. "I cannot be your shelter any longer," she whispered, her voice frail and sickly. "I will breathe my last, and the storm will hunt you down. The rain, relentless as it has been to me through the years, will hammer at you with the same fury. See the shadow, and together we shall fly." "I am afraid," Arthur said. The stranger took Arthur's hand in hers as he drew near. "This is what a sister's hand is for," she said softly. "To hold and be free of fear." It was day, a bright blue day, with a sky unmarred by clouds, white or gray. The window stood wide open, allowing the fragrance of rain-kissed grass to drift in. Outside, far below, a throng of tiny white flies swarmed. Bernice. Theme parks are the best. The roller coasters rule. But I didn't want to go into the House of Horrors. It looked dark and creepy, and I knew it was full of dead things and madmen, like the pictures on my dad's scary videos. That kind of stuff made my insides squirm and threaten to erupt buckets of puke. But Bernice had the tickets and me by the hand, and she was dragging me along and wouldn't stop. What was I supposed to do? Sit down and cry? I'd look like a baby, and Bernice would laugh. It was the first time she'd talked to me, so I didn't want that. Instead, I let her lead me to that dirty, gray building with the gargoyle-covered, finger-like spires, which rose into the cloudless, midday sky like a giant, concrete hand waiting to grab us. My feet dragged. The ground felt like quicksand. But Bernice kept me out by moving fast, getting us to the looming mansion, safe and sound. I said nothing when she handed the tickets to the bored-looking teenager wearing a Raiders of the Lost Ark t-shirt who was manning the booth. I said nothing when he complained we were too young, but it was okay if we really weren't scared. I said nothing when Bernice told him our parents said it was fine and pulled me through the thick sheets of plastic that hung like strips of flesh in the open door. I could still feel Dad's hand on my shoulder, nudging me on like he had towards Bernice. It was like I was being carried by that same momentum as I stepped forward into the darkness. And then, there I was, in a haunted house in Pleasure Beach, in Blackpool, holding hands with a girl from Northern Ireland. And I couldn't really believe this was me. Because if there was one thing I hated more than monsters, it was girls. Or at least, that's what I thought. Just a few minutes earlier, I'd been eating a burger at a white plastic picnic table on the veranda of the theme park family restaurant, sitting on a wobbly chair and slurping Coke while acting out a battle with my Star Wars toys. That's when I spotted the girl from our hotel, watching me from her seat a few tables away. It made me splutter Coke all over my Goonies t-shirt, because I hadn't expected to see anyone I knew here, so I hadn't been holding back on the sound effects. I tried not to go red as I looked away, sliding Vader and Luke into my lap. But I was glowing with embarrassment, so I failed. Like me, she was eating lunch with her family at one of the flimsy tables crammed into the packed restaurant courtyard. Like me, she was also trying to entertain herself while her parents babbled on about nothing, taking forever to finish eating and wasting precious attraction riding time. Except she was doing it in the less embarrassing way of juggling tennis balls. I knew her name was Bernice because that's what her sisters called her in the hotel lounge every evening. where I read Spider-Man comics, and she juggled. She made those balls go so fast, it was hard not to sneak a glance. She never even dropped one, and mostly, she wasn't even paying attention to what she was doing. I tried not to care. I tried not to think she was cool, with her straw-colored hair tied up in pigtails and those freckles on her nose that were kind of cute, but she kept catching me watching, which was annoying. It made her stupid. Older sisters giggle, whisper in her ear, and laugh. I knew they were talking about me. It made my cheeks tingle and burn, so I had to get up and leave the room. I always looked back as I did, and she was always staring after me, and now she'd seen me playing with my Star Wars toys. And for some reason, I felt really dumb. I didn't want to look at her again, with my red face and coke-stained shirt. But my head wouldn't stop, and when it turned, I got a horrible surprise. Bernice wasn't at her table anymore. She was standing right there beside mine, a tennis ball clutched in each hand. "Hey, my man gave me tickets for a ride. Are you coming?" "What? Are you coming on a ride with me? I'm bored." "Go on, Kev," my dad said, nudging me out of my seat and pushing me towards her. Luke and Vader fell from my knees and hit the flagstones. "You kids go ride the Chair O planes. We'll be finished when you get back, and we'll do another roller coaster." I didn't have time to retrieve my toys, and I didn't want to be seen doing it anyway. They were my favorite ones, and I didn't want to lose them. But suddenly, Bernice's eyes and smile seemed more important. She stuffed her tennis balls into the pockets of her jacket, then grabbed me by the hand, and we were off, weaving our way through the tables and crowds out of the restaurant. Her sisters staring after us, sticking their tongues out and making kissy noises with their lips. And that was that. Except Bernice didn't want to go on the Chair O planes. And now I was in what looked like the dirtiest of dungeons, with plastic skeletons jiggling on the walls, dim red bulbs barely illuminating the hall, and the sound of recorded screams filling the air. My heart pounded like it was trying to break free, my breath catching with each shadow that stretched from the walls. The darkness seemed to tug at my limbs, squeezing tighter with every screech. I didn't like the plastic vampire sucking on the neck of a mannequin. I didn't like the wax werewolf with its snout stuck in the entrails of a scarecrow. I didn't like the life-size, glowering Jack the Ripper, blocking our path with his blood-stained knife. It wasn't just that. The whole place stank of mothballs and mold, a damp smell that reminded me of Gran's house when we'd gone to clear it out after she died. That same scent of damp or death. I wasn't sure which had stuck with me after just an hour in her house a year before. And it was back now, stronger than ever. And the air didn't just smell bad. It felt bad, like a horrible weight pressing down on me, squeezing the oxygen from my lungs, like Vader using the Force to crush a throat. I hated it, every bit, but Bernice loved it all. She squealed in delight at every discovery, pulling me through the halls at breakneck speed, barely pausing at each horrific sight before barreling us on to the next one, which was good in a way, as I didn't want to be there longer than necessary, but bad in another way, because I'd barely recovered from one scare before another leapt out. Frankenstein's monster staring wide-eyed on a table, blood-chilling. A trio of witches at a smoking cauldron full of bones. Nerve-wracking. A pack of rabid dogs with drooling teeth. Terrifying. And let's not talk about the clown. I tried not to show I was afraid. I mimicked her shoulders bobbing and her arms swinging when she laughed and joked around, and agreed the scary things were really cool. When she playfully pushed me towards the creature from the Black Lagoon, I made sure my intended yelp came out a giggle. When she said, grabbed my hand, and told me she was scared of Norman Bates, I bravely tightened my grip and said it was fine. I was glad it was dark, because that meant she couldn't see the expressions on my face, or how my eyes were squinting most of the time. I was gladder still when we rounded a final corner and saw the word exit. We were almost out. It had seemed like an age, but was probably only 5 minutes. Somehow, I'd made it without peeing my pants, and she had no reason to think I was a baby. With luck, she might even have forgotten Star Wars, and that's when it all went wrong. My ball, she gasped, releasing my hand to search in both her pockets. I lost one of my balls. Oh no, I replied, looking at the floor, hoping I'd find it. When did you lose it? I don't know, Bernice snapped, knocking me against the rickety wall as she pushed past. That's a stupid question. If I knew that it wouldn't be lost, I'm going to find it. She didn't wait for me to answer. Didn't wait at all. Just ran back into the corridor we'd come out of and disappeared. Bernice, I shouted, and my face tingled when I said her name aloud. Wait! She didn't. I stared at the corner she'd turned, hoping to hear her call back, listening for a trace of her, even her footsteps. But the wails from the speakers seemed to be getting louder and louder, seemed to be laughing at me now. I turned the other way and looked at the exit ahead. Green letters glowing in the darkness, which seemed even darker now I was alone. For a second, I thought about running, getting out of there and waiting outside. For a second, maybe 2. But deep down, I knew I couldn't do that. I didn't want her to think I was a wimp. Being brave was somehow important now, but it wasn't the only reason I decided to follow her. I wanted to make sure she was okay. Dad would have been angry if I didn't. If I'd left her alone and something happened. I'd heard him say to Mom how he hated himself for not visiting Gran more often, for not making sure she was okay. Bernice wasn't my friend, but she could be, and friends wouldn't leave each other alone. Not in a place like this, even if the threat was all fake, especially because the threat was all fake. So back around the corner I went, straight into the arms of the skinned alive man who reached for me from an alcove in the wall. I didn't make eye contact with his lifeless wax eyes because he looked bloody and hideous, and I hated him. I moved on, walking faster, retracing my steps through the corridors, peering into the darkness at the shadowy figures that lurked there, trying not to see them if they weren't her. My heart pounded faster. My feet moved quicker. The screams, laughs, seemed to grow louder the further I went. I started to imagine that some of those screams might be hers, that some creature made of wax had somehow grabbed her. And then I was running, starting to panic, taking a corner too fast, yelping when I ran into monsters. "Watch it!" One of them, with stringy hair, shouted, putting an arm out to stop me. "You shouldn't be here, you little dweeb. Where's your mother?" It didn't take me long to realize they were just a couple of teenagers, a boy and a girl, both with long hair, holding hands. Still, I ducked under the outstretched arm and ran past them. I don't know why. I should have asked for help, or even asked if they'd seen her, but they were teenagers. They wouldn't have cared. Coming around the next corner, I saw two things that stopped me in my tracks. The first was the naked old man in the bathtub, with his black eyes and bath cap, stubbly beard, and thin, bony arm in the air, holding a long-handled scrubber. This one wasn't a monster, not any I'd ever heard of, but somehow he scared me the most. I hadn't been able to look at him the first time around, had kept my eyes glued to the floor while Bernice giggled and peered into the bath. This time, I had to look, because the second thing I noticed was the tennis ball he was holding in his outstretched hand. "Bernice!" I hissed, gulping as I stepped towards the bathtub. "Are you there?" Screams, screeches, shrieks and squawks from above. I moved closer, keeping my eyes on the tennis ball and not on the face of the man. He wasn't real. I knew that. He was made of wax. He couldn't hurt me. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. So why was the ball in his hand? And why was Bernice in the bath? It took me a second to understand what I was seeing. Bernice, lying face down on the smooth surface of wax that was meant to be water, from which the old man was rising up, her short auburn hair fanned out around her head, skirt hitched up around her knees. "Bernice," I whispered again, doing everything I could not to cry. Are you okay? My legs bumped against the rim of the ceramic bathtub. I lifted one arm to reach out. My eyes flicked to the face of the waxwork, which was far too close. Its horrible, blank gaze boring into me. The red bulb above the bathtub flickered. My fingers touched the top of Bernice's head. Something, arms, grabbed me from behind. And something, voices, screamed in my ears on both sides. I screamed, staggered back, stumbled, and fell to the floor. The flickering light bulb revealed two gangly forms, twisted shapes in the darkness, closing in around me, reached out their arms, making strange, slurping sounds that sounded like kisses. Gotcha! Laughed one, and I knew straight away who it was. Ha ha ha! You screamed like a little girl. Oh no! Did you piss your pants? Oh, are you really scared? Do you want your mommy? Bernice rose up in the bathtub, bumping the bulb and making it swing as her sisters danced around me, clutching their sides in laughter. The grin on her lips disappeared when she noticed the look on my face in the swinging light. That was brilliant, laughed one of the girls, high-fiving the other above me. Come on, Burr. Ma'am and Dad are waiting. And just like that, they were gone, racing away from the bathtub and the wax man and me on the floor and Bernice. And that's why I always avoided girls. I pushed myself up while Bernice climbed out of the tub and took back her ball. She had her back to me, and I had my eyes on the floor. She started to walk away, and I thought, good, go. Leave me alone with your stupid straw hair and ugly freckles. But then she stopped in her tracks and looked back. Sorry, she said, and I looked into a pair of darting eyes. It was my sister's idea. Kind of stupid, kind of. I thought it would be funny. A good prank. But it wasn't. She came closer. It was nice you came after me. I wasn't sure you would. I blushed, looked at my feet. I just wanted her to go. The screams from the speakers were better company. The lifeless creations populating the labyrinth were less likely to hurt me. Then, are you coming? She lifted her arm and held out her hand. And I blushed even more and looked up. We came in together. You're not gonna let me walk out on my own, are ya? One of the monsters might get me. She smiled. A small smile, apologetic. She was being friendly for real, and I liked it. I mirrored her smile and felt a flutter in my chest. Something strange that made a lump catch in my throat. I had to swallow hard to get rid of it. At least you have those tennis balls to throw, if it does. Yeah, they make great weapons. Not as good as lightsabers, but here. She handed the one she was holding to me and took the other one out of her pocket. I thought of Luke and Vader on the ground back at the restaurant and wondered if they'd still be there when I got back. Mom and Dad definitely wouldn't have seen them. Any other time, the fear of losing them would have stabbed arrows of dread into my heart and had me racing back in a panic. But I didn't seem too bothered by it now. When Bernice offered her hand again, I took it. And then we were walking back the way we'd come, through the monsters and the noise towards the exit, the wailing house of horrors, with its hallways full of scares, closed in around us. But as we walked hand in hand through the corridors, past eerie figures, and through screams that now seemed to be quieter, I wasn't really afraid anymore. With Bernice by my side, it was like we were off on an adventure, like the Goonies in their subterranean caves. And even if our caves did house monsters, I realized they weren't so scary, and neither were girls. Hello, Mary. Dear Mary, the doctors are asking me to write notes. Notes to people, to say thank you for things. And you are obviously my first choice. Thank you for teaching me how to fold origami. In every fold of the paper, I found immense comfort. I do it now that the doctor said I am stable. They forced some food down my throat and told me a bunch of lies. Now I fold origami and argue with doctors. Not a very interesting life. I wish they would let me talk to you. Aubrey. September 19th. Mary, the doctors are pushing for more notes. They say it will help me through past trauma or something. I tune them out when they talk sappy to me. But here I am, trying to get them off my back. Today, I would like to thank you for all the cookies I got when I escaped my house and came to yours. I have a very distinct memory of them. They had a hint of hazelnut in them, rich and fluffy, but they always left my brain fuzzy, making it hard to focus or really think much. Everything seemed so much easier after eating those cookies. I didn't feel a need to argue, to prove my point. I felt so much better. Normally, I wouldn't like to feel so impressionable, but it was strangely soothing then. Aubrey, September 22nd. Hello again. You wouldn't believe the fuss the doctors are making, Mary. They're quite upset I'm writing to you. Did you know they still believe the kidnapping story? I keep telling them you didn't have anything to do with my disappearance. Anyway, I've decided to continue this ritual of sending you letters. The doctors say I don't have to, but it's strangely liberating. So I think I'll thank you for the time we spent together. Everyone keeps saying that you were cruel, that you locked me up, but I distinctly remember you giving me a nice bed, food, and water. You talked to me. You understood my mind. When I woke up screaming, you wouldn't assume things. You didn't rush over and treat me like there was something wrong with me. You didn't tell me that it wasn't real or try to reassure me. You simply smiled at me. It was refreshing. When I told you about how beautiful fire was, when it stretched its long fingers, curling around a finger, nobody understood me like you did. So thank you for that, I guess. Aubrey. September 26th. Hi, Mary. I had a memory come back to me today. Do you remember the time that I snuck into your house? It was sometime in mid-winter. It was snowing, and I told you that I had never gotten to try hot chocolate, so you wanted to help me make it. You got out chocolate bars. You said that you had made it all by hand. I only remember that because I had asked why the chocolate tasted different. But that's beside the point. You gave me a knife. I was only 11 at the time, and I hadn't been given many opportunities with it, and I cut myself. This was when we had just started meeting. Instead of crying, I just looked at the blood. Then I asked why it did that, and why my finger stung. You just looked at me and told me that it was blood, and explained the human body. Nobody treated me as intelligent due to my many abnormal behaviors. So when you explained the human body and injuries, I was fascinated. I became obsessed with the concept of injury, and you helped explain it. So thank you for teaching me about that. Aubrey, October 2nd. Mary, the doctors keep telling me about my case. Keep telling me so many reasons why I should not be thankful I met you. Should not write notes to you. But I don't understand why. They weren't there. They didn't understand everything that happened. They don't understand why you kept me hidden, why you took me away from the world. They keep telling me that being away from reality for so long messed with my memories and my head. They keep telling me, I know it's hard to process, and your brain is making sense of fear in a way that is easier to handle. What happened wasn't like what you remember. You were kidnapped, Aubrey, and Mary wasn't a nice lady. And I keep telling them, no, 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 no. You don't understand. She was a nice lady, a very nice lady. She taught me lots of things. She was nice, nicer than lots of people. And they keep telling me, no, 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 no. And I can't stand it. They keep using words I don't like. They used the word abuse, torture. If it wasn't for you, I would have lost my temper already. So today, I would like to thank you for teaching me patience. When you kept me away from everyone, you taught me lots of things. You taught me to be patient, for one thing. And even though I wasn't always the most comfortable, I'm better off now. I can sit in a quiet room for hours without doing anything. I can wait and wait without ever getting impatient. Although the doctors are saying that my comfortableness in isolation is not patience, it is a response to trauma. But I know they're wrong, so thank you for teaching me patience. Aubrey, October 6th. Hello? I'm getting tired of these people telling me things about you, Mary. They want me to stop writing to you, and I'm getting frustrated. They told me that you were mean, that you hurt me. But you never hurt me that bad. You were just trying to teach me. I asked you to teach me. That's what it was. It was always that. They keep telling me lies, so many lies. And I'm starting to have nightmares. They tell me horrible things. They say that you tied me to a bed frame because you were mean. And I keep telling them to stop lying because I'm getting nightmares and fake memories. I had one specific nightmare that I remember. I was bleeding badly, and you kept saying the same thing. You spilled a drop, and you said it meanly, but I can't remember that. When I woke up, I thought I did, but it can't be real. Because you were nice. I'm positive. And the doctors won't listen. And it's all so frustrating. Because they told me that you were cruel. And now I have nightmares. I read about my case online. What they're saying you did to me is awful. I got nightmares. They're incredibly vivid. Now, before I lost all my sanity, I took up an old hobby, knitting. This is another thing you taught me to do. Even though my mother is claiming to be the one who has taught me, I know it was you. I'm not allowed to keep anything I knit. And I can't knit unless somebody in a room watches me. They think I am going to try to kill myself. Not that I can blame them. I have violent tendencies. They also say that I have masochism. They say I enjoy pain. It's not something I considered before. I was always fascinated by the idea of it. I was never afraid of experiencing it. But regardless, knitting has been wonderful. Thank you for teaching me to knit. It's one of the only things that I enjoy. That and origami, of course. Anyway, I probably won't get to write to you much more. I barely managed to write these notes. It won't be long before the pity wears off, and I can't cry my way into a new piece of paper. Aubrey, October 8th. Mary, 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 Mary. I like your name. M-A-R-Y. Something soothing about it. I'm sure that this will be the last letter I write to you. And not because I can't get more paper. The doctors have decided that I cannot be trusted. Even though some of them say that I'm remembering. I'm not. It's just fake memories. Nightmares induced by the horror stories they told me. The lies. 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 So many lies. They think I've gone crazy. They didn't say that exactly. They think it's from trauma. Trauma. They use that word so much. They are moving me to a psychiatric ward. I've been in a normal hospital. They were monitoring my health. Now, they've decided that I am dangerous to myself or others. In their defense, I have become worse at hiding myself. I lash out easier, but it's oddly liberating to be able to lash out, to get angry, to let the little voice in the back of my head, the one that wants chaos, the one that wants to watch the effect of pain on someone's face. You taught me that. You showed me how happy you were when you let the little voice in your head have more influence. They don't think it's the voice in my head. They think it's the trauma and the 12 years that I spent missing. The, as they say, damage Mary inflicted caused it. So, that's what I have to thank you for today. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to be crazy sometimes. Other people's screams will stop. But mostly, thank you for giving me an excuse. The girl who was raised better, the one who has no reason to hurt people, gets more disgusted looks than me. Little me got in trouble when I hurt others. But the psychotic, traumatized girl who was kidnapped and tortured for 12 years gets a free pass. Goodbye, Mary. I'll miss you, even if I'm not supposed to. Aubrey interrupted. Her eyes popped open. Someone had their lips on her mouth, kissing her. Kissing. She let her eyes drift shut to enjoy the sensation. It must be her mate. What? Wait. No. It can't be. She had the overwhelming need to cough. She couldn't help it. She coughed, turned her head to the side, and coughed. And that had to be a turn-off. She spewed out even more. Poor fellow, trying his best to make passionate love to her, coming in again to close his mouth around hers, just got spit on instead. He turned her towards him and patted her back. There you go, Your Highness. Good job. Keep spitting it out. You're coming around now. You'll be fine. Good. Good. She kept coughing and sputtering. What? Why? Who are you? What are you trying to do to me? Why are you kissing me? Get away from me. You can't be. She raised her arm to take a swing at his smoochy face, but he was faster and already had a firm grip on her wrist and had it under control. You are okay now. Take some deep breaths. I am trying to save your life, giving you my own breath. You swallowed an ocean and wasn't breathing. Keep spitting it out. Good. Good. Who are you and why are you out of uni? Why are you out of any... I thought you needed it more than myself at the moment. Seems you lost most all. She looked down at herself, seeing only a flimsy sheet covering her nearly naked body. That means he must have seen her. all of her. Maybe we can discuss this after I try to save his life. He pointed at a lifeless-looking body nearby. She tried to watch as he bent over the body and started making kissy sounds over and over again. She thought he must be trying to force air into the man's lungs, exactly as he must have been administrating to her lips. She brought trembling fingers to her lips, remembering the connection. Not unpleasant at all. Life-saving. That was different. She tried to move closer, but pain shot through her, and a whelp of agony escaped her involuntarily. She felt like something was tying her down. His eyes shot towards her. Don't try to move yet, until I can see how bad your injury is. One thing at a time, please, Your Highness. He proceeded with his fruitless task. Think. What happened? Where were they? How did they get here? Was that her lover he was working on? Her mate? She didn't see how it could be so. He didn't survive the coupling, did he? No, not one ever had before. She strained to see whatever she could around where she lay on her back. Everything looked out of context. Something had gone terribly wrong for them to wind up here, wherever this could be. As leader, she was the one who should be leading. But how when she couldn't move? And why couldn't she move? What had happened? How many other survivors were there? Only 3? 2, if the hapless gent didn't start responding soon. Shouldn't he be responding by now? How safe were they laying here? Were there predators lurking nearby? Her breathing quickened. She must conserve her energy. Wait. Just wait for his help. She took some deep breaths, trying to get the pain to subside. And remember. She must remember. Why couldn't she remember? He sidled back to her side. I'm afraid my efforts are to no avail. He was too far gone. I can't bring him back. I am so sorry. Now, if I may, I must attend to your condition. She squeezed her eyes tightly shut. I don't know what to say. Who was he? Do you know? You mean you don't remember? Yes, of course. I knew him well. We were working together, really. What is your position? Why don't I recognize you? You took a mighty fall. You've suffered a blow to the head and other injuries. It is no wonder your memory is fuzzy. Relax and trust me to administer to you how I must, and perhaps it will all come back to you. Don't worry. We will get to know each other very well. He started soothing her head, then moved downward, down toward her swollen abdomen, and kept massaging and what felt like stitching with ever so soft silkiness over the sore spots. It was easing her anxiety, so she let her vision drift upwards. There above what was that up there? Was it night or day? Something way above was blocking out the light source. It seemed heavy, with intricately crossed sections, creating a structure for support. She was peering at the underside, the side that was decorated with shimmery, delicate webs. Webs? Yes, webs. Her queendom of webs. That's where she fell from. That's where she belonged. It was all coming back to her. Betrayal, her lover, her chosen mate. Every detail was well planned. He had brought her an enticing offering of soft-bellied beetle. They had started enjoying it together. She was willing to share. She was no longer ravishingly hungry. He entertained her with a skillful courtship dance. He had been so good-looking and such a virile choice. She had no intention of cutting the ritual short. It was going to be an awesome night of mutual copulation, maybe even multiple times. They were both going to get lucky. She was looking forward to it being so sublime, so fulfilling. She was bulging with a ripe egg sac, perfectly spun, and all that was needed was his speedy sperm, and the deed would be complete. The pheromones were reading ready, and she was welcoming his pedipalps to unfurl within her. Suddenly, a piercing stab to her hourglass figure jolted her and made her lose her grip, causing them both to spiral down into a great abyss, ending in murky blackness, gasping for breath beneath a watery grave. If not for this lifesaver, this pale, skinny wannabe, no, you are no lifesaver. My survival senses failed. They should have warned stranger danger. You are the one that pierced my center. You're the one that caused our fall. Ah, I see. Even with half your brain eaten, you are beginning to remember. Yes, I am but a puny, pale male. But we males all have an instinctive drive to pass on our unique DNA to a new generation. I find myself extremely drawn to an older, more voluptuous female specimen, such as yourself. The chance for one like me to attract one of your royal class and desirability is near impossible. Much more probability I would be eaten for trying. I could have resorted to the suicide, sacrificial effort of simply throwing myself directly into your waiting maw while delivering my seed to your quivering underbelly epigynum. At least my legacy would live on. No. Instead, I chose to work with Mr. Big Strong Brown Body and let him take the risk of your rejection and act as a distraction for him. He was actually faring pretty well for a first-timer. He was ready to take the plunge before I rudely interrupted and beat him to the punch, so to speak. So, yes, my pretty, it is my heritage your precious sack will carry. I will guard it with my life now, after I hoisted back to the rafters above. I assure you, the coitus has been captivating. The bonds that bind your legs have obviously left you spellbound. Strictly a self-preservation tactic. I have plugged your riveting receptors so no other male can have the pleasure. But it wouldn't matter anyway. Your lover's guts gave me the fortitude to get you prepped. Now, I'll have to devour you, my sweet, to have the nourishment necessary to complete the hefty job before me. I admit mating with you has provided ecstasy beyond compare. I will cherish the memory. Once I'm finished wrapping our fertile sac in silk for transport, I'll dive into your attractive red hourglass figure to feast on that tasty, shiny black buffet of bulbous abdomen you brandish about so temptingly. Sure, I stalked you. I wanted you. You would have devoured me. I planned. I betrayed a friend. And I have been victorious. So sorry, Your Highness. But what would you expect in this mate-eat-mate world of ours? Suddenly interrupted, a tiny finger pointed their way. Do you? Daddy, what is it? Screamed a little girl carrying a pink child-sized fishing pole to her father as she sludged through the muck in her purple polka-dot goulashes under the bridge, heading toward their favorite fishing spot along the river. Looks like a nasty black widow spider, sweetheart. We don't want that around here. Daddy smashed the heel of his boot down on the unfortunate, melodramatic scene unfolding on the bank and twisted it all into the mud. The twisted end. Tallow. I spotted the village from the train window. It emerged from gray fields, its houses crooked upon the short slope of a hillside. Tallow, that was its name, possessed a certain genus, as if it longed to be forgotten. A manor, with its many wings and porticos, loomed over the houses from the hill's peak. There were few signs of life when I exited the train. No one walked the streets, and all the curtains were closed. It stunk of old cabbages and sulfur. In the distance, children played, but no school or playground existed in the village. The hotel keeper was asleep when I entered, her chin slumped upon her chest. A pair of reading glasses, hanging from a string of pearl-like beads, rested upon her chest. I felt rude ringing the bell, but even when I did, it took several trills until she woke up. She weighed me with a single glance. "You're the guest," she said. "I should hope so," I said. Immediately, I regretted the joke. She slid the key across the reception desk with disdain. "There's no breakfast now," she said. "You'll have to wait till later if you want to eat anything." In the lobby, the rack was dense with coats and hats, boots lined up alongside the wall. Despite this, while climbing the stairs and searching through the labyrinthine corridors for my room, I heard no one. Aside from myself, the hotel was unoccupied. My room was the bare minimum. A single bed, a wardrobe for 3 shirts at best, and a portrait, sun-stained, of some once green forest I had come away to write. And for the first 3 mornings, this was what I did. After consuming a breakfast of runny eggs and bacon, cooked up reluctantly by the hotel keeper, I came upstairs and sunned for an hour at my desk, doing little of anything, before heading out for a walk. Usually, I would arrive back in time for lunch. Then I would try again to write, fail, somehow more miserably, and head out for yet another walk. At first, my walks avoided the manor on the hill. I walked instead through the dead fields surrounding Tallow, seeing little more than a few bony horses and the occasional abandoned tractor. A drought had been scouring the south for some months. Occasionally, in the far distance, you would see someone standing outside their house, hands on hips, looking towards the cloudless sky. It seemed you could not get away from the manor wherever you walked. Its windows followed you across fields and into woods, over streams and up hills. As time wore on, my walks seemed to draw closer to it, until I trespassing upon the grounds themselves. Once, just once, I spotted the groundskeeper, a huge man, a whole head taller than me, with a bag of suet over his shoulder. He nodded with a gnarled intensity and dumped down the bag. I hurried on. "Who owns the house on the hill?" I asked the hotel keeper one morning. She frowned and placed down the breakfast. Then she sat opposite me, as if this question could not be answered standing. "That's the Macintoshes," she said. "Rufus, Cordelia, I forget the names of the twins. What do they do?" "They own Tallow," she said. "The town?" "Yes." At night, I began to hear the growl of a motor car. It started in the distant hills, grew closer and closer, then ripped past the window and howled off into the night. The sound seemed larger than the village itself, as if I could place my arm out of the window and feel the very air vibrating. I soon found myself waiting for it by the window. I finally spotted the car on the 4th night, its headlights beaming down through the country lanes like twin stars before illuminating the village in sheer white light. It sped past, a dark green beetle of a car, its hood down, and its driver guiding it confidently, almost arrogantly, with a single hand, his other splayed across the passenger seat. "Who was that?" I asked the hotel keeper after returning from my walk the next day. "Rufus," she said, and shook her head as if I should know this by now. "He's in one of those moods." The hotel possessed a single cramped bar, really no more than a cupboard stocked with alcohol. The hotel keeper would stand in there, usually, from 3 until 5, and then again from 7 until 9. I came in from my walk, and for once, she was not alone. A voice filled with the hearty opulence of the British countryside filled the room. "A guest," it said. "My boy, come into the light. Let's get a look at you. We haven't seen a guest in years." The voice belonged to a man sitting before a glass of whiskey. He smiled broadly, revealing graying gums and a vast set of crooked, yellowing teeth. He had on a tweed waistcoat, its top sprinkled with dandruff. Almost immediately, I did not want to be in his company. "What brings you to Tallow?" he said. "I came to write," I said. I hated that I said this, but something about his manner meant I could not lie. "Excellent," he said. "Most excellent. You will return to the city with many splendid poems detailing our beautiful town, its beautiful countryside, its..." I waited, but he said no more. "Certainly," I said at last. He smiled, clenching his teeth together so that they may be admired. "I won't detain you long," he said. "The muse calleth, the blank page beckon. All of that, thank you," I said, and turned to go. He held up a finger. "There is one more thing, if I can say, and this will be awfully forward of me. But you look to have the most wonderfully soft hands. It would be a pleasure to me if I could touch them." I remained in the doorway. "Come on," he said. "Come closer." Something in me, politeness, let's call it, compelled me across the room. I held out my hand to him. He took a sip of whiskey and placed the glass meaningfully down. Then he leaned close to inspect my hands. The dim lights shone upon his moist lips. With calloused fingertips, he traced slow, gut-wrenching circles across my palm. "Yes," he said, "lovely." He pushed my hand back towards me, as if returning it. "Thank you," he said, and he gave me one last, awful look at his teeth to remember him. "It's Rufus McIntosh, by the way," he said, as if I had not already sensed this fact. In my room, I ran my hand under hot water and scrubbed it with soap until it began to ache. No matter how long I worked for, I could not seem to get it clean. I noticed on the doorsteps of the village a set of tawny, whittled dolls. Many wore dresses or waistcoats. I expected the children of the village, who, still, I could hear playing in the distance, would steal these dolls. But that did not appear to occur. At the hotel, the keepers had a tiny straw bonnet, which she adjusted so it sat askew on the doll's head. A day after I met Rufus McIntosh in the hotel bar, I discovered a crow outside of my door. Dead, obviously, with both wings removed and crammed into a shoebox. The scent of rotting flesh had penetrated my room while I wrote. When I finally stepped outside, the stench overwhelmed me, and I hurled my guts into the toilet bowl. Downstairs, when I had finally gathered myself, I told the hotel keeper about the bird I had found. I tossed the shoebox onto the counter. She eyed it with a certain melancholy. "That can't be helped," she said. "Can't be helped? What do you mean, it can't be helped?" "It's just part of it." "Part of what?" "Tallow." She took the shoebox and placed it under the desk. She sighed. "I suppose you'll be wanting a discount." Nothing I wrote seemed to stick. If I wrote a sentence in the morning, I would return in the afternoon and find the words jumbled. But always when I sat down at my desk, it seemed as if I were seeing things truly for the first time. My pen moving rapidly across the paper, solving issues of consciousness and mortality with a few pithy phrases. I was enjoying my work, perhaps for the first time ever, but it seemed all I was producing was nonsense. I still went for walks. Often I saw Rufus on the balcony, looking up towards the sky, attempting, it seemed, to make the heavens open through willpower alone. If he spotted me, he raised his hand in greeting and smiled. Even from some distance, I could make out his teeth. The invitation was for dinner. That night, 7 o'clock. "Bring some poetry, boy," it said in blue ink scrawled beneath the address. "Regale us." "You won't be needing supper then," the hotel keeper said when she delivered it. By the time the appointed hour came round, I was dressed in my best outfit and waiting in the hotel lobby. It felt excessively hot, and I could not get comfortable in the chair. I felt I should have left the village of Tallow at that moment and headed back to the city. But I stayed, stupidly, rashly, believing I would get some answers. I heard the purr of Rufus's motor car approaching through the country lanes. He entered the lobby, beaming. "Come on, old chap," he said. "Supper's waiting." Outside, his car puttered on the driveway. The interior was flaking leather. Rufus climbed in after me. "Let's hit the road," he said, and wrenched the mighty gear lever into position. The car growled beneath his feet. Before I could adjust my seatbelt, I was thrust back into the seat as the car hurtled on towards the hill. Houses, bushes, trees, all streamed past. The wind cut viciously into my eyes. I glanced at Rufus. Tears streamed from his eyes, but he seemed to take a sinister delight in the pain. Over the howl of the engine, Rufus shouted, "Sorry about the short notice, my boy, but I heard soon you'd be leaving us. I thought you may as well see the manor before you go." "Thank you," I said. "What?" "Thank you." He cranked the gear lever once again, and with a crunching shift of his feet, the car shifted in speed and momentum to get careen around a corner. I was almost thrown through the window. "Almost there," he shouted. True enough. We arrived. The car crunching across the gravel, spitting stones from the wheels. The final stop jolted me towards the dashboard. My heart was hammering, my vision blurry. Already, he was ushering me out. "Come on," he said, glancing up at the sky. No time to waste. Cordelia awaited in a long, poorly lit room, at a table spanning almost its entire length. She sat near its head, her wheelchair pressed up against the wood, an empty plate before her. She was veiled and wore a black lace dress, incredibly intricate. Her white silk gloves, like a pair of snakeskins, sat beside the plate. Rufus came over and touched his lips to his hand. "A delight," she said, when I entered, and held out a hand for me to kiss. I could not see her face, so I could not tell her expression. But I bent to her hand and touched my lips to it. She was freezing. Her skin tasted like moss. "Please," she said, "take a seat." They sat me at the head of the table. When the first course arrived, toast with pâté, they paused, both of them, to see how I would eat it. After I began scraping the paste across the toast, they shared a look, as if to confirm something. And then they too began spreading pâté upon their toast. "Rufus tells me that you are a writer," Cordelia said. "That is true. A fiction writer?" "Yes," I said. "He's really very good," Rufus said, mouthful, flecks of toast on his teeth. "I have read all of his books. I, of course, had never published a book. In truth, I was a really very unsuccessful writer. It was, at best, a hobby to me. You have the right shape of cranium for it," Cordelia said. "And you have inquisitive eyes. I suspect you are rather good water sports as well." I did not know if that was true or not. Rufus gave a little chuckle. "This is my wife," he said. "A scientist, always working away in her laboratory, tinkering, delving deep. Truly, it is all beyond me." "I must read your earlobe," she said. I suspected it was perhaps the wine and a slightly empty stomach. But this idea, which normally would have filled me with horror, felt sound. Before I knew it, the second course was arriving. It was mozzarella and tomatoes. But the tomatoes were unripe and gave way with soggy ease. When I ate them, I am too polite, they had already turned tart. The mozzarella I dared not touch. This did not stop the Macintoshes devouring their meal, though. They ate as if they had been starving for days, often foregoing their knives and forks and using their hands to push the food into their mouths. Come the end of the course, Rufus had tomato juice down his chin, and the hands of Cordelia were spotted with food. "Your earlobe?" Cordelia said, tapping on the table. "I wish to inspect it. My apologies," Rufus said. "I suspect this is all a ruse. I told her you had the most perfectly soft hands." I laid my cheek upon the table. She wished to look at the right earlobe. The left, she said, was often a liar. I felt safe doing this for some reason. It was around then that I noticed I felt entirely safe altogether, that the feelings of anxiety and turmoil that had accompanied me prior to the trip had dissipated, that, in fact, the anxiety and turmoil that had haunted my whole life had flown away as well. I focused upon the fingers tracing my ear and felt almost bliss. I smiled at Rufus, and he smiled back, innocently, back. "You are beginning to enjoy it then," he said. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." It was at that moment that Cordelia leaned suddenly forward and, clamping her teeth forcefully down on my ear. Before I could speak, she'd bitten through the bone and swallowed it whole. I passed out. How could you not? When I woke, my left ear was gone. A patch of bloody flatness remained. They stored me in the barn, alone. Once a day, the groundskeeper arrived with my feed. He pushed the bucket through the feed slot and waited for me to eat, sitting, smoking, watching. When I was done, he took the bucket. He felt sorry for me, he said, his voice a low growl. Then let me out, I said, but he shook his head. In time, he said. A few moons. He looked skywards, nodded once. In the nights, I dug at the ground to the back of my cell. The dirt was dry and rough. After an hour, my hands were bloody from the effort. I lost nails, turned my hands black, but did not stop digging. Eventually, I was able to tunnel under the boundary wall, pull myself under and out. A pair of purple bruises, shaped like kidneys, still adorn my hips. I fled into the night, though tallow glowered below. I did not trust the locals any longer. I found safety in the trunk of a fallen tree and sheltered there for a night. They hunted me, Rufus's motor car tearing through the countryside, its lights emerging over the crests of hills and sending a searching white cone into the darkness. I emerged come dawn, lacking sleep, and hobbled on, my stomach growling. Eventually, I came to a new town, a new hotel, and managed to persuade them to let me stay. How disheveled I must have looked standing in their foyer, with my ear lost and my clothes bloodied. They provided me with a small, ill-outfitted room. That night, in the cramped confines of a single bed, I heard the howling of the car again. I left, once again, before dawn. It went like this for several days, me finding some place to camp, Rufus pursuing. I was heading, vaguely, for London. Still am, really. Though there is no knowing of when I shall arrive, given my kinking and arduous passage through the quiet country towns. There have been times when Rufus has grown close. I have spotted his car outside of various hotels, parked on the roadside gates while he stalks across an empty field. I know, inevitably, he will catch me. When, however, is undetermined. Despite this, every night, I dream of tallow. Not nightmares, but a kind of strange nostalgic reverie. I wonder if there is a part of me that wishes to be caught. Perhaps there is that part in all of us. Perhaps that is why, an hour or so before bed, I unlatch the window and leave it open. Just a crack, just an inch, so that while I sleep, anyone may enter. Tennies, time of contact, 15:05:01, impact force, 6,000 newtons. Serve speed, 135 peters. Distance traveled, 25.5 Angle, 60 degrees to horizontal. Velocity, 82 s. Required service. Return response, 10 paces. Left moving forward, 30 degrees. Commence swing at 15,503. Apply 5,500 newtons of pressure in a topspin forehand shot with an upward trajectory of 35 degrees to the horizontal. That's what the voice of the AI vocoder instructs inside me head for the umpteenth time this session. And who am I to argue? It's not like I'm important. Not like I was ever a champ, much as I came close. Nah, I'm just a chump, now more than ever, prancing around the ryegrass on me hydraulic legs, returning the volleys of the hottest new prodigy on the block, tailor-made to appeal to Gen X. In today's case, in this exhibition matches case, in this latest exercise in humiliation of a former tennis pro, now referred to as a legacy player, but nevertheless expected to lie down and be shamed by an AI-driven, Tekla-encased wonderkind designed for clicks and likes. Me opponent is a silver-plated female with a digital display for a face that portrays fluttering anime eyes and a head of artificial dreadlocks. Silver sequined tennis dress that just about covers a polished butt. Pink Banditas solar-powered shoes that transfer energy into speed through soul-based combustion. Soul-based. Cause that's the only soul that robot has. The only soul this game has anymore. Since AI took over in the 50s, machines became the players du jour, and humans abandoned the game because they couldn't compete. Well, the smart ones did. The ones who didn't sell out. The losers still chasing that win. The stubborn didn't know what else to do with their lives after tennis, morons like me. And now I'm here in Wimbledon, facing off against 10NIS Inc.'s latest creation, the embarrassingly named, I don't want to say it, don't even want to think it, but I can't help it, 'cause it's painted in chrome letters on her arm, and she screams it every time I throw a point. Tennis, 10, ice, get it? Like Denise, but with cause, yeah, that's the best one of the biggest promoters in modern-day sport, or neural integrated sport, as they call it, could come up with. Anyway, here I am, fulfilling an obligation of the ill-advised contract I entered into when 10NIS didn't want to sponsor me for tournaments anymore, pretending I'm here for a comeback, the 4th this year, if anyone's counting, while in actual fact, here to make tennis famous. Jesus. I still can't believe someone thought tennis was a clever idea. And it took them 8 years to come up with it. But if it keeps the fans following the sport, if it keeps the heart of tennis beaten long after badminton and golf and frickin' darts have breathed their last. That's the important thing, right? Physical sports for humans have been going the way of the chariot race for decades thanks to VR. And nobody cares, except to those of us who have it in our DNA. And all we had to do to keep playing was mutilate our bodies with mechanical limbs and armor plates. 1010 S-controlled neural uplinks, computerized smart eyes, and carbide jaws, fiberglass ribs, atomic-powered hearts, and a willingness to do what we're told. Simple, right? What self-respecting tennis pro wouldn't want to go that extra mile to keep competing? And competing I am, if you can call it that. So as the vocoder says, 10 paces forward at 30 degrees, swing at 1503, 5,500 newtons of pressure in a top spin forehand shot with a trajectory of 35 degrees it is. And there's the contact. And there's the return at a whopping 104. And there's Tenise, moving to intercept in line with guidance from her interface. Dreadlocks whipping, skirt lifting, metal ass glinting in the sun, while her polymer crystal-based titties jut out in front like guided rockets. Of course, she moves perfectly to return the shot. The inbuilt speaker where her mouth should be screeching another tirade. Think you're gonna cease Tenise's piece? Try again, stinky. Old has-been McEnroe. It's McEnroe. Fuck's sake. If that bitch says McEnroe one more time, I swear to Christ, I'll thwack. Tenise swings and volleys. You'll what, Mike? Pull a stunt like your namesake from last century? I don't think so, says Nora, me manager, the other annoying voice inside me head. Thwack! I follow instructions and lob the ball back. Oh, and did you forget about matching the speed of Tenise's shots? You're 5 in a 3 by faster than her. Stick to the playbook. Thwack. Tenise with some digital grunting. What's the matter, Nora? Can the new dolly not take the heat? Oh, she can take it. I had her set to slow for you. Thwack. Me, without so much as a pant. But if you want to go faster, pile it on. I spit through diamond implant teeth. You spent all this money powering me up. May as well let me employ it. Thwack. Tenise. Show off, you mean. Like an old boy trying to stay relevant. Tenise. Ball velocity cap disengage. Smarmy bitch. I'm more relevant after 40 years in this game than any O10 NIS's androids, like Bjorn Bot, or Android Agassi, or Robot Federer. What happened to them when the novelty wore off? And don't get me started on Steffi graphics. Unless she's considered relevant for popping a gasket and decapitating people with her racket. The chip in me brain tells me how to return the ball that's rocketing towards me, and I dutifully oblige, channeling more energy into me piston-powered, omnidirectional shoulder. Thwack! 150, says Nora. Fuck me. You're asking for it. Rebellion is frowned upon. The board won't be happy. Like they weren't happy about Steffi? That happened on your watch, right? Hope I don't get you in trouble. Thwack. Tenise Hoopin, 155 return. Fuck off, Mike. Don't remind me. Steffi wasn't ready. I was forced to play her. Because Esport were debuting Virus Williams. It was a PR disaster. We barely survived. Thwack! At a speed of 107 verdump. I send back the ball, and fanboys in the audience boo at the stinky old man droid who dared think he could take on their idol. But that's okay. I didn't really think it. I'm not here to win. I'm just here for the paycheck. To do what 10 NIS need. Promote their new star. Increase her follower base. Raise revenue for the future of the sport. But nobody cares about that. Not like I did as an up-and-comin', then a contender, then a pro and almost a champ. Even when I failed in 6 finals, lost me edge, dropped out of the rankings, and was relegated to the local leagues, it didn't matter. I loved tennis. It was all I knew. And I wanted to win. Just once. Even when the robots took over. I couldn't let it lie. Couldn't do what Megan said and quit. Fuck that, I said. I'll compete till I win or I die. Even if it means modifying me body so I can enter the robot leagues. 'Cause flesh and blood didn't cut it anymore. Not with the greater stakes. With robots taking each other's arms and legs off, punching holes in each other for the pleasure of fools. Yeah, McEnroe had to stay in the game, even when Megan left, 'cause I became a freak. And now look at me, a meme, a salesman, a phony. Thwack. Tenise returns the ball and cavorts, shouting, "Take a piece of Tenise and decease." What's with these poems, Nora? They don't make any sense. Not my idea. Heads up, Mike. Coming at ya. On autopilot. Following instructions. I move, swing, strike with even more power. Tennis cranked it up to 160. I hit it back at 165. Board aren't happy, Mike. Told ya. There's a termination contract for you to sign after you finish this set. Thwack. Duck, McEnroe. Tenise strips the fleece from the geese. 170. One more game after this to give Tenise a 6-0 finish in her debut appearance. You should slow down. You've got an old model A heart. They're volatile if they overheat. Thwack. 175. Back at the missile-titted bimbot. Beads of sweat on my forehead. One of the few human parts of me left. Haven't felt that in a while. It's nice. Okay, you're not listening. Time you lose your jaw, Mikey. And maybe break an ankle when you fall. Thwack. Still 40-15 to Tenise, but Tenise will increase. This is the bit that wrecks me, Noodle. Having to let myself be torn apart. 'Cause that's what the peeps wants to see. Destruction and mayhem. Players busted up. Pieces scattered. It's all right, 'cause it's just robots. Robots and crazy old bastards. Funny, after 2 years of this performatory bullcrap in this particular match against this particular droid. I think I've finally awoken. Maybe not, I say, as the ball careens toward me at 180. The vocoder is delivering instructions to ensure I mistime me swing. I've played this out dozens of times, always in the next last game. Play well till then. Make it look like I might win. Then fuck up and let the newbie triumph. I'm sick of it, and I don't fancy losing today. Not to a robot named Denise. So I ignore the vocoder and instead of deliberately missing, I try to actually send the ball back. It doesn't work. I'm old. I don't have me own reflexes. Trying to override the instructions downloaded into me brain takes effort I'm not used to. So even though I have a decent stab at it, the ball still hits me in the face. Not quite square like it should, but still with the force of a bullet. Hinges snap, carbide cracks, screws and cogs go flying as the metal jaw tears from me face, ripping muscle and skin from me cheeks as it tries to come free. I don't want to break me ankle, and I consciously try to avoid it. But the way I pirouette to the ground makes it fait accompli. It doesn't hurt. The leg's not mine. It's a carbon-based replacement, filled with cables and pistons, metallic blue, like all me robot limbs. But like a real leg, when the ankle joint snaps, it's no use. Take that Robo 4030. Did you seriously try to ignore a direct instruction from 10NIS after what I just said? Nora, in me ear, well pissed. Denise doing jumpin' jacks and whistling. The crowd on their feet, cheering and laughing at the old boy down on the ground. Fuck off, Nora. I've had enough. It's not easy to talk with me jaw hanging crooked and blood from me cheeks filling me gob. But she seems to understand me, gargled Lingo. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I was going to let you get up before Denise resumed play. But screw that. And I'm not sending mechanics to fix you. You can finish your career on your ass, and McEnroe, stay down. I'm warning you. I don't need 2 mechanical ankles to stand. Don't need a broken robot foot. 2 twists and a tug is all it takes to rip the thing off with me metal arm. And then I use me racket to get up, hopping on one leg, holding me severed foot in me left hand. The foot with the sock of jagged metal where it broke at the ankle. Denise has already served by the time I'm upright. Me vocoder is silent. No information about the approaching ball. No instruction on how to intercept. It's all gone quiet, except for Nora. I swing me racket aimlessly and miss. The ball slams into me chest at 190 millipede and knocks me flying, down on me ass again. And I carve up the ryegrass with me buttocks, while the crowd point and laugh. Yeah, laugh it up, you useless geebags. Like any of yous fat fucks ever swung a racket. 40, love, 5 games to 0. Tennis spins, Tennis grins, Tennis wins. Stay down, McEnroe. If you sit the rest out, I'll make sure she grounds the balls around you. Not on you. I told ya. Fuck off. Do ya not? Listen. I shake me head and blood and oil geyser from me maw. Me severed foot and racket are still in me hands. The racket, like a crutch, helps me up, as wires snake through a crack in me chest plate. The shoe in me, left hand, goes to me ear, the ear with the implanted comms link. Me ear is real, flesh and blood. 1% of the 30% that's still me. And I don't care. Mike, what are you doing? I swear I don't know what she swears she'll do. 'Cause I stab the sharpest shard of metal on me foot into the space between me ear and me noggin. Plunge it deep. Scream as I saw, and I slice, blood blotting the grass red beneath me. I carve, and I cut, and I hack, and when I've done as much as I can, I cast the shoe aside and use the pincer-like fingers of me metal-plated hand to grasp and pull, skin and cartilage, tear as the ear leaves me body, and I forehand it into the audience, not cheering or booing anymore, but giving me all their attention. That's nice, but too little, too late. Sayonara. Left ear. I'll miss ya nearly as much as I missed me. Left nut. When the bastards castrated me for it, the fluorescent yellow ball slams into me nose, driving the metal shield that's screwed to it into me skull and pulversing the bone underneath. And that's not the worst of the damage done by the first volley in the final game of the set, which has kicked off without any warning. Nora's shut down me vocoder. Not that I care about that, or the fact me right eyeball was knocked from its socket by the impact and is dangling by a fiber optic cable, swinging like a pendulum and smearing the blood from my nose all over me cheek. 15 love. Tennis defeats elites with receipts. Does anybody hear this shite? Who programmed this bitch? And why can't she read the feckin' room? Everyone's on their feet, but not a peep out of one of them. Robots smashing robots is fine, but when the color of the splatter is red instead of black, it's a whole different ballgame. Like when Steffi Graphics ran amok. Won't be long till they're tarring Tennis with that brush and running for cover. Thwack! I have to turn me head to seek out the incoming ball with me good eye. But it's moving so fast, over 200 mph, that it's hit me racket hand before I find it. Not just hit, but carved through, lopping it off at the wrist. 30 love. Tennis is the beast from Venice. You're no beast. You're not from Venice, and that's not how you say it. Little wonder today's the day I decided to pack it in. This really is the nadir. Down on one knee, no foot, no ear, busted nose, dangling eye, no racket, or even a hand. But I don't need one. me arms more useful without it, 'cause the blade-like spike at its end can slip into a rupture in me chest plate, allowing me to prise it open more. McEnroe! Nora's voice reaches me, and I wonder how I can hear it, until I notice she's now standing at the sidelines, wringing her manicured hands and shooting me daggers. All right, Nora, come to applaud? Thwack! The ball hits me square on the forehead and busts me metal skull like an overripe melon, knocking me flat on me back to spill blood and brains on the lawn. 40, love. If you can't beat the heat, take a seat in the street for Tenise. Me vision flickers. Me few remaining nerve-ending scream. I grimace, but ignore the pain. I need to concentrate on what I'm doing before Tenise finishes me off. If not with a ball, then another of those god-awful poems. What are you doing? I hear Nora shout, as me left-hand side armor plate pops granting access to me chest. What I should have done ages ago, I managed to utter, before drawing me right arm back and stabbing its spear through me ribs. Fucking tyrant, I gasp as I probe inside me chest, using me arm like a fondue fork to fish for a mallow in a vat full of thick, bloody sauce. Tennis is the knees of the bees. Tennis is chirping to the crowd, who are filling the stadium with screams and stamping their feet, not in appreciation of the spectacle before them, but in panic as they try to escape. McEnroe, have you lost your mind? You're... shit. Nora sounds closer than before, and from the corner of me dangling eye, I see her approaching. Good. She's gonna want to witness this, the termination of me contract, and the literal extraction of me heart. Me bio-organic heart, with the atomic core, installed in place of me, real one to keep pace with the robots. It comes out through broken ribs on the end of me arm, which has pierced it with its spear-like, jagged tip, causing it to vibrate and hum. You wanted me to make your girl famous? Mike, your heart's ruptured. It's not safe. Tennis serves up treats with techniques. I'll make her feckin' famous. Mother Hub, stand down. Tell Tenise to stand. Thwack. She must have said, down. But nobody heard it. Tenise's ball collides with the volatile heart I'm holding out at 250 miles an hour. And as me regrets, and me remaining humanity, and me misguided, stubborn as fuckness go all up in flames, I finally find myself peace, content in the hopes that Tenise and 10NIS won't survive today's PR disaster. How do you like that for a comeback?